Let me set the scene for you. Imagine an extraordinary individual. By day, genius police forensic scientist Barry Allen, and by night, the fastest man alive. Whooping bad guys inside and out of the law, protecting the public by reprimanding the supervillains of Central City and being a role model to all. But of course, just like many and all superheroes, the Flash longs for days past. A life different from the exciting superpowered one he currently lives. A normal life, with his parents together and his mother alive and well. On a particularly sentimental night, this speedster's mind is flooded with memories of his late mother. Not only because it's her birthday, but it also marks the day of her tragic murder decades ago. In his haze of emotion, he begins to lose control. In an attempt to run away from the haunting memory of his childhood, he runs faster than he's ever run before. Faster than saving anything or anyone, hoping he's fast enough this time to save the one person he was too slow to save. In an erratic display of speed, he utilizes the Speed Force and rips through the fabric of space-time itself, chasing the current date decades ago in hopes to make it home to alter history and rescue his dear mother from death. Are you still imagining? Nope, wrong one. Nope, wrong once again. Slightly closer. Yeah, there you go. Nope, go back, went too far. Yeah, that's it. Of course, there's no real need to imagine this Flash storyline, because what I'm describing to you all is the most popular Flash story to ever exist. None other than Flashpoint. Written initially by Geoff and Andy Kubert in 2011, this comic book crossover story arc published by DC Comics has been beaten like a dead horse since its release, in adaptations and retellings across all media. But potentially the most popular, and definitely the best adaptation of this story, came in the form of a DC animated movie that went direct to video called Justice League: The Flashpoint Paradox. Now, DC animated movies before the Flashpoint Paradox weren't a novelty concept. DC's animated catalog of movies sits right up there with the better portion of movie material they've ever released, doing what unfortunately producers and executives don't believe would be profitable in live action in superb animated fashion. Many films are usually standalone projects that are either adaptations of popular works or original stories. These don't necessarily connect to a larger universe, but sit somewhere in the verse and involve many a character on frequent occasions. I'm sitting here, fingers crossed, that the success of the latest singular story of The Batman will finally change dummy Hollywood higher-ups' minds so that the fans can stop lusting over the creation of their favorite comic runs and finally see it come into fruition on the big screen. It's a lot of wasted potential for DC, honestly. With its release in 2013, 2 years after the original comic issue, this film acts as the first installment of the DC animated movie universe. Directed by Jay Oliva, this man is a comic veteran animation connoisseur. Absolutely stacked resume. I failed to see what popular comic book character this dude hasn't worked on. Like, look at this. What? The voice cast? Undeniable. We've got Justin Chambers as the charismatic Flash, Kevin McKidd as the gritty Thomas Wayne Batman, Ron Perlman as Deathstroke, the voice actor Chameleon D. Bradley Baker as Etrigan the Demon, the ever-charming Nathan Fillion as Hal Jordan, a surprising appearance from a younger Michael B. Jordan as Cyborg. And let's be real, what's a DC animated project without the late, great Kevin Conroy as the Batman? Those are just the notable voice actors. This film spares no expense with the number of A-list comic book characters present, ranging from cameos lasting a few frames to more prominent appearances. Let's just say there's a reason this film is a Justice League titled project. There's so much going on in this narrative. Barry is thrust into this obscure new reality, which he has no idea he created, to find his old foes turned hero, his old friends altered or non-existent as metahumans, with a colossal world-ending backdrop involving Wonder Woman and Emperor Aquaman. It's unbelievably jam-packed with characters and side stories showing us newcomers to this world why our favorite heroes and villains have changed the way they have. Coming in at a prompt runtime of an hour and 21 minutes, it does a fantastic job at piecing up the source material in a fashion that leaves a digestible amount for viewers, without leaving out the essence and attributes that made fans love the original comic. It doesn't feel too rushed. You don't find yourself lost among the multiple plot lines occurring at the same time. Plus, I'm a passionate lover of an hour and 30-minute movies. Not everything has to be 3 hours. Now, there has been certain criticism pegged against this film for it being mislabeled as PG-13. An aspect I always respected was that this film was more adult orientated, containing tasteful profanity, a handful of quite intense moments, along with severely awesome action sequences that were most definitely a surprise for the younger and more squeamish members of the audience. This is because Flashpoint Paradox had an unprecedented amount of violence and gore. A number of bloody deaths occur throughout the film as a result of the war. Dozens of combatants are shot, stabbed, run through, decapitated, and blown up during the course of the film. Stephen Trevor is even hung by the neck till it snaps and blood comes out from his nose and mouth. And to put the cherry on the top, there's a gorgeously graphic scene near the end of this film that depicts Professor Zoom with a hole shot directly through his head. The camera pans to the hole, showing the viewer the trail the shot made through Zoom's cranium. The inside of his brain is entirely visible during this sequence. Roger Deakins level cinematography, honestly. There's also a few spicy scenes for those who prefer 2D characters. Now I'm sure everyone who watched this movie can agree that the action sequences are undeniably badass, only bolstered by their violent and bloodthirsty nature. But also, it is understandable why so many that watched the film alongside their children, younger siblings, or just particularly squeamish people were highly upset by the misjudgment of this age rating given to the film, granting it a PG-13 when it was much closer to a 15 rating or higher. I always thought it was a bold move back then, especially when in today's age of superhero films, only after 50 or whatever years did the MCU have they dropped their first ever F-bomb in Guardians 3. Told us that Doctor Strange 2 was going to be a horror film. Pfft. There is far more blood and dismemberment here than you would ever expect to see in a superhero animated film. It's closer to Invincible actually. And I do tend to agree, it's not recommended for kids. Hey everyone, Hashimoto here. If you are enjoying the video so far, please do hit those like and subscribe buttons. Helps me out tremendously. And hey, it's free. On with the video. This is such a pivotal story that getting both faces of the character right was crucial. And Justin Chambers is a great Barry Allen and Flash, bringing charisma to the quick-quipping speedster as well as the necessary gravitas to the more emotional points of the story. Barry is on a journey unlike anything he's faced before. Thrust into an obscure new reality with no superpowers, no Justice League, and no idea how it all happened. He's starting from ground zero again, and it's an important journey for him to go on at this point in his arc. Even after thwarting Professor Zoom and the Rogues from attempting to destroy Central City, he feels unfulfilled. He seems distracted on the wrong things. Instead of looking ahead like a hero should, he lingers on the past on unavoidable details of his mother's murder.
If I just ran a little faster, I'd have been there.
Accept the things you cannot change, have the courage to change the things you can, and have the wisdom to know the difference. That's a very poignant line delivered by Nora Allen in the opening scene to a young, naive Barry. And it sets the theme for this entire film. Unfortunately, Barry's continued lack of understanding of his mother's words are the sparks that set the world ablaze. In the greatest story of his comic book career, it required an equally great adversary. And oh my god. C. Thomas Howell voices an unbelievably menacing villain in Professor Zoom, otherwise known as Eobard Thawne or the Reverse Flash. Thawne hails from the 25th century and becomes obsessed with Barry Allen, the Flash of the 20th century. Initially a fan turned villain, motivated by a twisted admiration for Barry, Thawne uses his ability to manipulate time and wreak havoc, becoming the Flash's arch nemesis. Thawne's obsession with the Flash leads him down a path of villainy, driven by jealousy, a desire to rewrite history, and an unrelenting urge to torment Barry Allen in every era. Even when restrained by the likes of Superman, he's the one that taunts Barry with a reminder of his failure to save his mother that sets off the events of the entire narrative.
But no matter how fast you run, you can't save everyone. Not the ones that matter to you.
This film heralds the best interpretation of the character ever presented. But just like many of the characters in this film, he doesn't get a lot of screen time. But when he does, his presence has immense weight, especially at the climax. As he looms over a crippled Flash, he practically sings his villain monologue, and is just oozing malice and euphoria at the colossal mistake Barry had made. I mean, just listen to the gloating of this guy.
It was me, Barry. I jerked you off at super speed so it'd seem like you nutted at just a woman's tongue.
Oops, wrong one.
How noble. Oh wait, you didn't stop JFK from getting assassinated, or make sure Hitler stayed in art school. You saved your mommy. You missed her. And in a supreme act of selfishness, shattered history like a rank amateur. Turned the world into a living hell moments away from destruction. And I'm the villain?
Now the character that truly steals the show, the only figure stubborn enough to be present in any timeline, the man Barry seeks out in his lowest moment for help. The Flashpoint comic is credited for creating one of the most iconic versions of Batman in Thomas Wayne. Just when fans thought Batman couldn't get any more haunting and violent, all it took was the begrudging father to lose his son instead. Have you ever seen a more Batman-y Batman than this? He's dialed to 10. The alternate timeline is dark as it is, and Thomas Wayne's Batman is like a black hole against the canvas of deep space. As mentioned, this reality's Thomas Wayne loses Bruce on the night in the alley. He ends up as a rageful, ruthless Batman, and his wife Martha falls into manic disillusion. It's utterly impressive the way intricate details like this are woven into the story. You're left with your jaw hanging at what has become of your favorite characters. Motivations flipped, lives altered, and some figures too inevitable to be adjusted. I have a huge appreciation of the ingenious writings of Geoff and Andy Kubert. Without the level of detail they put into this narrative, it honestly wouldn't work the same. And what makes this story hit even harder is that it has the freedom to kill off iconic characters with no repercussion. The fact that it's an alternate timeline needed of mending makes it possible to kill people off, knocking people off like flies. And the graphic nature in which our beloved heroes are killed just adds to the shock it gives the audience. And don't forget, contributing to the enormous feeling of culpability that is plunged upon Barry in his lowest moment. Also, for my money, has the best speedster fight scene I've ever seen. As action-packed as this film is, it carries an immensely important message for those who carry trauma through life and have a hope to do good in the future. And I'd like to think that each and every one of us has a stake in such a message. We all have things in our past which we battle throughout our lives, things we encase deep in us that burrow in our minds, latching on and pestering us in our darker moments. What this story is at its heart is a cautionary tale, to not allow events of the past to destroy our futures, to live and let live. What's happened has happened. Coming to terms with things that are out of our control. Looking to the past never helped anyone. Yesterday is not ours to recover, but tomorrow is ours to win or lose. Lyndon B. Johnson. A father who lost a child and a child who lost a mother. The core of this film's message resides in the genius pairing of these two superheroes, both haunted by their pasts, yearning to make amends for it. When there really is one way to make peace but to move on. Barry came into Thomas's life as a teaching point for him. When we find him, he's a disheveled and mean old man. A man who punches first and asks questions later. A man with no morals and a deep hate for the world that took his son from him. He's triggered into a beating frenzy when someone even mentions Bruce's name.
Mention my dead son again, and I will break out my surgical instruments.
The one and only reason he decides to help Barry in his quest to revert the timeline is derived from the selfish notion that his son survives in Barry's reality.
In your reality, is my son.
Bruce is alive. He's Batman.
He's consumed by the mistakes of his past more than Barry ever is. He would let his reality burn to ash just so his son could have a life. I mean, Dad of the Year, am I right? Even in the midst of Barry's memory collapsing seizure, his first point of action is to make sure he remembers his son Bruce.
Don't forget my son.
And the guy's a doctor. But by the end, when he realizes what such a longing can cause in the case of Barry saving his mother, he doesn't wish that similar fate to swell in Bruce as it did for himself. Hence the letter he tasked Barry to deliver. The movie doesn't show what's written in the letter, but the comic issue Flashpoint Beyond number 6 does. It reads as follows. There's only one thing I know about life. I know some things happen by chance, and some things happen because we make them happen. If I'm being honest, I prefer the ambiguity. Coupled with the equally beautiful message by Nora Allen, it allows us as an audience to explore the meaning behind the story for ourselves, to learn the important lessons on our own. That's how you know a good moral will stick. And just seeing those 2 teardrops of Bruce fall onto the letter is everything for me. Now, as most of you know, the new Flash film is yet another adaptation of Flashpoint, Barry meddling with the timeline which results in no metahumans. Similarly, it seems he seeks out Batman to help fix it. Now, the animated feature had its strengths lie in the fact that it could take a lot more of the source material verbatim and show it off in motion, keeping a large amount of the story points and aspects consistent with that of the comic and making the narrative more concise due to the limitations of the animated format. It also had the major advantage of being the first adaptation, the first time Flash fans were seeing the story told in a film format. At the point we are now, this new Flash film is going to be forced to make its own bold changes. And we as fans deserve that. I fully understand that it was most probably studio pressure for the first Flash standalone film to follow the character's most popular story, especially since DC needs hits lately. But on the other hand, I don't think a director like Andy Muschietti signs onto this project if he is going to be creatively boxed in. And just from the trailer clips alone, I can tell he's most certainly put his own spin on it. So color me excited. There's obvious changes like this Batman's probably not going to be the Thomas Wayne Batman. Rather than finding a caged Superman, it's going to be a Supergirl. A huge change in the larger threat shifting from Aquaman and Wonder Woman to what seems to be Zod. And of course, there's two versions of Barry in this film. But there's also similarities like the way Barry gets his powers back, or gets them for the first time. Seems Ezra saw the violence of Flashpoint Paradox and went a bit too method.
And always just knock you out and then you won't have to panic.
Yikes. Flashpoint Paradox has set the bar extremely high for me as the leading Flash feature film. So that's what it's got to be. I highly recommend this to anyone before watching the new Flash film, or after it, whatever, it doesn't matter. And if you enjoyed any and all of this video and want to see more videos like this, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts on Flashpoint Paradox were. And as always, appreciate you watching.